This is going to be a joint presentation because we've been working as a team, Jorma and I. It has been a tremendous pleasure and a privilege to work with him, as it is to be with you today. There is so much that we could talk about. So for this particular presentation, we shared the work. I will introduce the initiative, and Jorma will go more in details about the profile of PEROSH, but also the cross-analysis study that we conducted some years ago, just before COVID hit, basically. Very good. So first, I would like to say that in-person meetings to share knowledge and think collectively are a very important aspect of networking. And it is absolutely necessary. There's so much we can achieve through online meetings and so forth, but in-person meetings makes the difference in building trust and sharing commitment and learning from each other. What is PEROSH is of significant inspiration for the ILO and the world, and I am dead serious about it. The benefits of collaboration are valid here in Europe and are very much needed in low and middle income countries around the world. Right now, I'm using the experience of PEROSH and some other networks as well in building a network-based research institute in West and Central Africa where capacities are critically lacking. Capacities are lacking in each individual country and within the region altogether. So we need to structure them, have them to collaborate, learn from each other. And organizing this collaboration is very much inspired by the experience of PEROSH. Let me first, I will talk very briefly where this research about PEROSH came about, and a few words also about international collaboration in occupational safety and health around the world. And Jorma will come in talking more specifically about the characteristics of productive networks and future perspectives. The ILO CIS was created back in 1959. The first thing that struck me when I was appointed to be its coordinator back in 2012, when I left Egypt after the Arab Spring, was that the ILO knew very little about research agencies, institutions, and organizations, let alone about existing networks around the world. We did not know our own network of CIS national and collaborating centers. The model from 1959 that was created at the initiative of 11 research organizations from Europe, really needed modernization. It was badly needed. A networking model where the ILO, a highly bureaucratized political arena, would sit in the middle and engage relations with 150 plus organizations around the world was no longer sustainable because priorities have shifted. Basically, research organizations, institutions, and agencies collaborate with one another in many ways and in all regions. There exists a constellation of OSH networks around the world. There notably are regional networks and subject matter networks. Now, the challenge for us is to connect them to accelerate global knowledge transfer and exchange in the context of occupational safety and health becoming a fundamental principle and right at work. The world 187 member states of the ILO have decided in June 2022 to incorporate safety and health as a fundamental principle and rights at work. It means in principle that all member states have the obligation to apply the provisions of Convention 155 and Convention 187 in practice, regardless or not whether they have ratified these conventions or not. So there is a lot to be done. Let me share a few information. What we did some years ago is we really needed to know what was out there. What triggered the interest for this research is actually the disappearing of the Swedish Institute back then. I thought to myself, this cannot happen. If it happens in Sweden, it's going to happen everywhere around the world. This cannot be true. We cannot let it happen. So we better understand as a global policy setting organization, what the situation is, and then adapt our strategies, programs, and activities to support organizations active in research in safety and health from around the world. So we conducted, with the help of Jorma and Suvi and a few other people and some stipend funding from the government of Korea, we conducted a global survey of OSH agencies, institutions, and organizations that are specifically active in safety and health research. We basically sought to identify around the world 5 categories of organizations: those that are government-related, those that are more academic-related, G2, those that are basically bipartite arrangements, and those that are civil society organizations, basically, which are Group 5. There was no registry of knowledge organizations. There was nothing. We had no capability of sampling them. So we basically raked the bottom of the sea to see what was there. And this is what we found. So basically we found roughly 2,000 email addresses, and we sent the questionnaire to all of them. Then we screened them when the respondents replied to us. So we received 271 fully completed questionnaires, and then we screened them out, and we retained 159 of them. And this is the scenario. Basically, to this day, it is the most important inventory of OSH research agencies, institutions, and organizations around the world. So we wanted to understand what were their key functions, the scope of work, what was their governance modalities, their management practices. We wanted to know their research priorities and how they set these research priorities, very importantly, the topics and the outcomes. We wanted to we also looked at the organization of and delivery of services in safety and health, specifically occupational health services in the sense of Convention 161. We also looked at the practices in public awareness raising, their practices in international networking, the available resources, and seek for possible collaboration, interest in collaborating with the ILO in furthering this work. Here's a few words about what we found. Regarding international collaboration, we basically found that OSH agencies basically engage in formal collaboration. This is 3/4 of collaboration at the international level are formalized through contracts, through agreements between governments, through agreements between agencies, institutions, and organizations. Only 1/4 are not. We found also that government and academic related agencies from high-income countries, HIC, primarily engage in multilateral formal engagement to the level of almost 44%, meaning that 55% do not engage in formal international collaboration as well. So there's some sort of isolation also. And this is very important regarding our previous speaker, what he said. The political are going faster than science, of course. And this is right now a very important turn of event, with OSH becoming a fundamental principles and rights at work. As I'm presenting right now, there are discussions on the global OSH strategy that's taking place with ILO member states, and my effort right now are trying to incorporate in the global OSH strategy everything that has to do with OSH research, everything that has to do with knowledge and capacity development. But OSH research is sort of falling off the global strategy. So we really have to battle for it. Nothing can be taken for granted. So in looking into the agencies, I'll just go very fast on this. The data will be available to you in any way. We asked agencies, institutions, and organizations what were their objective in engaging in networking. The most important objective is strengthening their capacities. Clearly, I mean, there's no picture needed there. I mean, this is clearly the case, notably for low and middle income countries, ranking 4 out of possible 4. But it is also the case for government and non-government AIOs and for high income countries as well. What is interesting is that I thought for myself when we initiated this study that influencing policy decision making was an objective, and that achieving economies of scale was also an objective, but not at all. They ranked very low. That's very interesting. Then we asked them what criteria they considered when engaging into international networking. Sharing common goals was the main important criteria. Clarity of objective and the global character of challenge, very important. Geographical proximity, not at all important. Notoriety of other member organizations, not at all important. Common working language, who needs that? Then we looked into the factors enabling engagement into international collaboration, networking, and partnerships. Most important enabling factor, expertise of our staff. This is critical. And we have an issue worldwide. There's a critical shortages of FIOH researchers, of FIOH professionals altogether, at a time when FIOH is becoming a fundamental principles and right at work. I mean, this is a situation that we need to tackle collectively at the global level and in Europe also as well. So another factor enabling is the clarity of the role and the autonomy of action. The availability of financial resources did not hit the mark as the most important enabling factor, except, of course, for low and middle income countries, for which this is the most important factor in facilitating international collaboration. So with this data at hand from the survey, and I mean, we could talk for 3 days about all this data that we have and that we're trying to mainstream into our policies right now and programs at the ILO. We complemented with Jorma the analysis of networks, one in Latin America, one in Southeast Asia. We also, Jorma prepared also the profile of the Baltic Sea network along with the ASEAN-OSHNet, PEROSH, but also the Southeastern European Network on Workers' Health, and also we did a profile on the l'Interafricaine de Prévention des Risques Professionnels in West and Central Africa, with whom we're building this research capacity. So without further ado, Jorma, I give you the slide presenter and the floor. Thank you for meeting. I'll come back. Thanks.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, organizers, for kind invitation. It's an honor for me to be here and meet all the old and new friends again. And thank you, Claude, for inviting me to join with your presentation. It's challenging to speak after him because he's so terribly good speaker. Anyway, I made on request of Claude that sub-regional network analysis, and Claude was very instrumental in that, making it possible, in fact, in Africa and Latin America. Otherwise, we had not been able to complete those network analysis. I jumped some slides quickly because Claude was already explaining a lot about background. So I would like to list the reasons why institutions according to my information and discussions with the institutions, wanted to be in members of network, it was three C's. Connecting, communicating, collaborating. These seem to be the most important ones what institutions wanted to. And I think Claude analysis very well confirms it. They were among those most significant parameters. So I don't discuss that more. Then we go to the analysis of these 6 networks. And we had really from different continents, and it was very good because we got, let's say, a kind of global picture of networking in OSH sector. We utilized something like 12 different parameters to analyze the network activities. It would have been possible to make more, let's say, scientific analysis using statistical network analysis methods, which we have done sometimes in FIOH and in Finland. But unfortunately, it is so cumbersome for the members that we didn't take the risk to ask you to make 1 or 2 months daily recording what you are, how you are conducting and discussing with other institutions or colleagues. So it was unfeasible for us. Therefore, we made a little bit more, let's say, arbitrary type of analysis, looking at the 12 parameters. I'm going to show those parameters more in detail very soon. Then finally, we did also kind of cross-cutting analysis of all those 6 networks. But we also described the profiles of member institutions in all these 6 networks. It was 68 individual institutions participating in these 6 networks collectively. It would be quite an army for occupational safety and health if you would get it somewhere coordinated and harnessed for global objectives. I think it's Claude's challenge. Okay, let's go to look at the analysis. I will jump immediately to results, and this is probably the most important result. I love this kind of spider nets, and they are very illustrative. And what is also important, they share the same information for each and everyone. So we are all similarly informed when we look at this. And it is also few seconds you need to get the analysis, the picture. And that's also, I have used this also for politicians several times. When you give this kind of chart to minister, he in few seconds understands why are we so good in that and why are we so poor in that, what should we do? Therefore, this is a very good instrument. Okay, let's look at these 12 different parameters very quickly. We looked how governmental are those network members. Some of them are very governmental, some of them are very private. Then how they are institutionalized, how their research programs are, how important is research in the programs and strategies, and how well they have established them. Training activities, whether institutions are providing services, policy administration support, strategy, whether it has been well established, how multidisciplinary are institutions, which is the requirement of the modern work life, as Frank so clearly also demonstrated. What kind of infrastructures institutes has available, because they are also needed. And then how financing is organized, and how human resources are available for the institutions. And I make a long story brief. In fact, there are 2 networks which were very prominent in this map. It was ASEAN OSH and PEROSH. But if we take the research networks, PEROSH was absolutely number 1, with with a lot of muscle compared to many others. PEROSH has strong institutionalization, very well made strategies, also financing thanks to strong institutions behind, and also very, very strong research element in the program. ASEAN-OSCE was more administrative type of network, supporting government's decision-making and policy-making, not that strong in research as PEROSH. And therefore, I think today we can declare PEROSH was the diamond. Here I demonstrated the connectivity of network members in PEROSH framework. In fact, connectivity is one of the key practical issues in the network. Without good connectivity, in fact, you don't have good network. And we used as an example the participation in the PEROSH projects. And that time, PEROSH had 7 projects going on. And here you see the map of participation of that time 13 members in PEROSH network activities. You can identify here 5 strong partners, members. Everybody was very good, no doubt about that, but there are 5 which are really very prominent again here, and they were also able to take the coordination role of PEROSH projects. It was INEIL, IFA, Health and Safety Executive, TNO, and Danish National Institute for Arbeidslivet. Okay, these were the institutions which were most active. In fact, PEROSH had a principle, maybe even still has, every member should participate at least in 2 PEROSH joint projects. And I think it's very good. It doesn't let anybody to totally be out. You have to participate, and that's very good. Okay, those projects were very ambitious, and we already have seen Frank presented some of them. I would like to take 2 important, which in terms of future are also extremely important. It was a foresight project coordinated by Diana, who is somewhere here, and another one, clearinghouse, which is more information activity, but it is very, very badly needed. I will return to that later on, why I find these 2 very important. We identified also some prerequisites for effective professional networking. I'm not going through the list, you can consult the slides later, but it is important that you have a strategy and objectives well defined. I know networks, and I have been a member of networks which don't have any idea why they are networking. And that's not a sound basis for networking. PEROSH is totally different, good example of being well strategically planned and well instituted. There is so-called Metcalfe's law, which tells that the PEROSH is the more productive, the more members it has. I have a little bit different view. I think PEROSH has an optimal number of members. It is manageable. It's still a family, not, let's say, a corporation. And that's the big difference in research. And therefore, I think it might be a challenge to get all 27 EU countries as members, but anyway, not too many members make, according to my learning from these studies, network effective. Rules of operation are, of course, self-evident. You have to have some kind of focal point. And in PEROSH, it is rotating chair who is temporarily always focal. But as important as is rotating chair, which is guaranteeing participation and commitment, is permanent secretariat, because it is really the one who ensures continuity. And that continuity in research activities is extremely important. Otherwise, than in business strategies, their quarter is 3 months. Our quarter in research is 25 years. And therefore, continuity is extremely important. Leadership, of course. What is coming more important in future is ethical dimension. And I think we should discuss that more and more, because ethics is very much challenged in many occasions in our contemporary world, and even probably more in future. Ethics is also important to mutual trust within the network. You cannot get trust if you are unethical. And therefore, ethics is probably more important dimension than what we probably have thought about. Okay, institutes will clearly benefit from networking, and I refer to Claude's slide, so I don't repeat that, but it is very important. What I would like to take up in this point is quality control. Your peers are assuring your quality, and therefore it is also important. But Claude gave several other arguments for that. But let's go to a little bit probably surprising one. I took the risk to illustrate the profile of an ideal network. And I think I am afforded to do that because, according to my view, PEROSH is very close to ideal network. Taking into consideration all these parameters and all those data we have collected with Claude, that's really important. Let's look quickly. You have a mission, value, strategy, program, commitment. Then you have the next, which is culture. Network culture, which is based on trust, statutes, and accountability. And then you have the structure, which is members, leadership, infrastructure, and secretariat. And then we have the environment, customers, and partners, and so on. This makes optimal network, and I think PEROSH is really, this is a face photo of PEROSH, I think. I will discuss more future in next slide. We have learned from Frank that future challenges are many. We have threats, but we have also certain hopes in future, and we have to consider them both. But now I would like to take something which may look out Donald Rumsfeld's triple box, but this is not. This is Aristotle's knowledge quadrant. And we have things we know. We know. It's relatively easy thing, but we may not know all, so we have to make just clearinghouse activities, explanatory research, systematic reviews, and meta-analysis, which are very popular at the moment. We have also known unknowns, things we know we don't know. And there we do explanatory research and, for instance, Delphi studies, and probably PEROSH foresight was a little bit to this direction. Then we have unknown knowns. I think Frank was mentioning several of them in the field of ergonomics. We know, but we don't want to know, or we don't happen to know. That is something which is very cruelly demonstrated in case of asbestos, for instance, and in tobacco in the workplace. We were fighting very hard for getting asbestos banned in Europe, and we still get a lot of mud because of that. Somebody tried even to lay me off from my position because of asbestos, but we survived. We have unknown unknowns. We can use very multidisciplinary interactions, translation research, again clearinghouse, communication networks, and now I look with very great expectations to artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning, which may be helpful for us in this case. But then, finally, we have unknown unknowns. Somebody called them black swans. They are something which we don't know. And that is the challenge in the contemporary global working life. There are so many things we don't know. COVID-19 is one good example of that. I was in Ministry of Health, China, in first week of December 2019. No single word about COVID. And it was already there. Pandemic was already starting there. Okay, we have several others which can be called black swans, and we should identify them, and we should be prepared. We were totally unprepared to COVID-19 in the whole world. We were also totally unprepared for Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster. We were not prepared for that, and we should not be in the future anymore unprepared. Therefore, we should do everything what we can and even more to recognize unknown unknowns. But I would like to say also that there are not only black swans, it can be also white swan. And I think Frank was referring already to white swans. It might be something which is also surprisingly positive, which we can use. And that's probably also a word to look at. So I will stop here, and I think Claude wants to say something in the end. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks for you stay here. Now, just as we're running out of time, I just want to invite everyone here to think 1 second. What if PEROSH was not existing today? How would you set it up? That's a very complicated question to answer. It is existing, it's fantastic, it is inspiring the world, and its value proposition needs to be promoted widely, firmly, and with determination. Thank you for all your work and for showing us the way. Thank you very much.